Hello. So today I have a series progress video at the start of 2026 and like a bookish junk journal that I have. I chose like five different book series that I definitely wanted to finish in 2026. I was in the middle of so many book series that I didn't know which ones I wanted to continue and at what point I wanted to continue reading them. So I thought breaking them down would be much easier. So that's why I ended up with the five. And now that we're almost finished with June. So I feel like since this is the midway of 2026, I decided to reflect on everything that I've read so far and just see which book series that I have completed and which ones that I have not completed. Whenever I would finish one, I would like check it off in like that junk journal that I have. But when I was seeing which ones I completed, I noticed that I started a whole bunch of new book series that I didn't intend to this year. And not like it's a bad thing. I just knew that I wanted to focus on the five that I had originally written down. So I just kind of want to go through everything in terms of like a book series that I read this year. I completed three out of the five book series. And then I started like a whole bunch of other ones. So I kind of just wanted to get into that today. Also, like apologies in advance if I don't seem coherent. It is just so incredibly hot and I'm like really sweaty and just kind of like delirious, I feel like. So my bad. I have to go hunting for all of my books because I don't have them in a pile because that's just going to be way too much for me. So the first series that I finished is the Ruinous Love Trilogy by Bryn Weaver. I feel like I read Butcher and Blackbird early 2025. For some reason, that's just coming to my mind. And this year, I read Leather and Lark and Scythe and Sparrow. I still don't know if I'm saying that right. Scythe and Sparrow. I'm going with Scythe. I think that was like my general consensus in like the last few times that I talked about it. So I just remember how I felt reading Butcher and Blackbird. I was just absolutely blown away because I was seeing everybody on Bookstagram talk about this book. So when I got to reading it, I was like remembering like some of the comments where people were saying, and I was just blown away by like the love story and also like the serial unaliver activities that goes on in this book. Like I will always remember the ice cream. Like that's just always going to stick out to my mind. So that was just such a fun read. And then I got to Leather and Lark and I loved their dynamic. Their banter was super fun. I really loved that Lark loved glitter. Like glitter was just absolutely everywhere. And I have worked with glitter before and that stuff like literally stays on you forever. So that was also kind of like a fun little trait about her character. And to be honest, I think, and I actually feel bad kind of saying this, I think my favorite couple, or at least my favorite couple, my favorite book is definitely Scythe and Sparrow. I'm double checking the names because I feel like there's just a lot going on right now in my hands and I don't want to get anything wrong. Okay. So I definitely loved Scythe and Sparrow. I'm not sure if I will say the name right, but Fionn, the main male character, Fionn and Rose, I just absolutely loved them. I loved seeing like the little insights into the love story when we saw them in Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark. So I feel like just the anticipation of getting to know their characters when I finally got to Scythe and Sparrow just made everything, like the whole reading experience, just so much more worth it. Oh my, Fionn was really stressing me out like near the ending of the book because I was just like, why can't we just communicate what's happening? I know he like couldn't or else he would get in like huge trouble, but I feel like there could have just been something to save Rose some of the heartache that was going on. I loved that she worked in the circus. I loved getting to see like some of the tents that were in her circus. And I just loved seeing how their love story, how well, I guess I should say it's the other way around. I loved seeing how Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark were incorporated into Scythe and Sparrow, like those interactions, because I know we saw how Fionn and Rose fit in to the other two stories. So it was just really nice to see how the first two stories fit into Scythe and Sparrow. So this was just an amazing, amazing book series. And I also bought Harvest Season by Bryn Weaver. I really love her writing. So she is definitely an author that I will continue to read and continue to buy. So the next series that I finished this year is actually on this bookshelf, and that is the Wild Magic series by Raquel Vasquez Gilliland. So I read The Magic of Untamed Hearts. I feel like, oh gosh, maybe February. I'm forgetting when I read everything, but I know I finished this year because I believe this was due to come out February 2026. But I finished the entire series. In my hands, I have The Magic of Untamed Hearts, which is book number 3. And then I have Lightning in Her Hands, which is book number 2. My sister in law has the first book, which is Witch of Wild Things. So the first book focused on the eldest sister named Sage. Book number 2, Lightning in Her Hands, focused on Teal. And then book number 3 focuses on the youngest sister, Sky. The Magic of Untamed Hearts was just such a fun book because we learned that Sky was basically dead for like 7 or 8 years, more or less. It was quite a long time, but she wasn't actually dead. So she kind of comes back to life. She gets like resurrected from like this middle ground. And in the third book, we basically see her essentially she missed out on like quite a number of years because obviously she was in like this weird middle ground. So we see her coming into her own, kind of coming to terms that she, even though she missed out on like quite a few years of her life, she just enjoys life and she doesn't take it for granted. And she's very blunt. That's what I really loved about her. And she's also really funny. And just seeing her love story with Adam was incredibly sweet. Adam was an interesting character because I feel like I mentioned this before. And like if this was a movie, he would be like the big city guy who like hit hard times, goes back to his hometown and has just like a terrible time before he acclimates and then wants to stay there. I didn't get that from Adam. He definitely hit hard times, but he seemed really not as depressed as you would think someone would be if they had to move back and just hit really hard times. So it was interesting to see like his backstory around that. But overall, this was a really fun series. And I wonder if we would get a book 4. I don't know if we are. I haven't like kept up with any updates about this, but just the way that book 3 ended, it started to feel like it was going to touch on like some of the witch history about the family. So I wonder if that would be something that gets explored in a fourth book. I just love the series, so I kind of wanted to just like continue for as long as I could. But if not, obviously I am 100% happy with this series and the way that it ended. My hair is sticking to my neck, but I am just going to move past that. You might see me sweat. I'm so sorry. I sweat a lot and I hate it, so my bad. The, the third series that I finished this year is On This Shelf. So I mentioned in the past, this is like my absolute favorites bookshelf, but I am getting a lot of favorites recently, so it's starting to overflow. It doesn't look like it because my sister in law has, I think, two books actually. And then one of my best friends borrowed another book. So I had books just kind of like stacked on here. But if I have those books back, I know eventually I'm going to have to like shift from here to like here. Oh, wait, actually, I have at least four, five, 6, 7. Okay, I actually already started bleeding into this next shelf, so I don't know what I'm talking about. And especially because this next series, it's also one of my favorites. I read The Shadow Carver by Nadine Matheson, and this is part of the An Inspector Angelica Henley thriller. So I'm pretty sure I read The Jigsaw Man, I feel like in 2022, maybe mid to late 2022. And I actually don't read a lot of like crime thrillers for some reason. Just like looking at my shelves and thinking back to like other series aside from this one, I don't think that was necessarily a genre I gravitated towards. Not for any particular reason, it just didn't stick out to me. But then when I read The Jigsaw Man, I was just absolutely blown away. And then I started following the author on Instagram, and I have kept up with her updates about this series. Like, not religiously because I feel like I'm not there yet, but I'm definitely like a couple steps behind it. I saw when she was outlining, I think outlining book 4 and a possible book 5. So I have kept up with this series for quite a long time. And when I read this one, again, I was just so taken aback. And I initially wanted to wait to get the Shadow Carver because the Jigsaw Man, the Binding Room, and the Kill List are all in paperback. And obviously, this is a hardcover. I bought this in a hardcover only because I think it was a couple months ago. My husband and I were celebrating something. We were celebrating our wedding anniversary and we had went out to eat, and then I had wanted to go to a black woman owned bookstore that was within the area that we were in. And when we went in, it was my first time there. I was looking at everything and I saw the shadow cover on the shelves. So I just decided to get it. So it's going to feel a little odd because this is the only hardcover out of the other three. But I mean, I guess that's okay. And what's interesting about Nadine Matheson's work. So often with her work, since it's been a while since I've read the first three books, I'll just talk about this one. So when I was reading this book and I was reading the crimes that were happening, and then we started getting into the reason why it was happening, who was being targeted, and the potential suspects that were going after these victims. When I learned more and more, and when I learned like the entire who, what, where, when, why of why these crimes are happening, I don't know if she intended to do this, probably not because she actually has a background in law. When I read this book, I honestly was like, in terms of these victims, I was like, you know what? They kind of deserved it because they were like the most horrible people that you can think of who committed the most terrible, horrific crimes, and they get away with most of the time just a slap on their wrist. And when you know the crimes that they committed and you see how easy they just like got off, I was like, you know what? They deserve what's coming to them, and that is a really good reason of why I should not be a lawyer because I'm sure that's not how it works. But she, again, she just does such a great job of like showing you, I don't want to say both sides, but I feel like I am always in some sort of ethical dilemma when I read these books because honestly I was like, this person kind of deserved it. They did this horrible crime, they were able to just pay the money, and then they get to walk free, and then this poor family lost a loved one and there's nothing they can do about it. So honestly, it's such a good series. What I also really love about this series is the main character, Angelica Henley. She just has so much going on in her personal life, and I feel like every book she just snowballs herself into more family drama, more strain in her marriage, in her relationship with her father and her brother. She has a daughter and she's trying to be there for her daughter. So there's just a lot that goes on in these books, and that is just a huge reason as to why it's one of my favorite series. So those were the three book series out of the five that I completed. Now, heading into all of the ones that I currently have in progress, I am still in progress for another book series that I had started, so the four out of the five. But aside from that one, I started five additional series. So I have six series in total that I am in the middle of reading. And that is also not including the book series that I left off of the original 2026 list because there were some from like last year and the year before that. Like I know I have Adam Silvera's series on there. They both die at the end. And I know a couple of other series that I'm just forgetting because it's been so long since I've even looked at them that I don't even know what I have. So there's just a lot going on in this list. The fourth series out of the five that I originally listed out for 2026 is The House Witch by Dylan Hatch. So I read book number one and I also read book number two. I don't have book number two in a physical copy just yet. I kind of want to finish reading book number three on like Libby or something. And then once I finish book number three, then I feel like that's when I'll buy book number two and book number three, just so I can feel like I read everything first. And now the reward will be buying it because the cover is just so, so cute. I started this book last year, mid August, no, early August of 2025 when I was in Boston. I started this book so many times, but I remember when I first bought it, I kept falling asleep. I was like in the park and I kept trying to read it, but I was just falling asleep. So I would start it, stop it, and like close my eyes to take a mini nap. But eventually I finished it and I absolutely loved it. It is just such a cozy fantasy series. It looks like it's a multi series. I'm not sure what the wording is. So I know The House Witch is part of the House Witch series. And then there is the Burning Witch series. There's the Ether Witch series. And I guess there's a fourth book called The Princess of Potential within the House Witch series. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of like, oh, what is that word? It's like connected worlds or something. It's escaping me because my brain is on fire and I'm sweating. So the House Witch series, including the other ones, I am counting a total of three, four, nine books in total when it comes to this world. So That is definitely going to take me a while. I imagine that this is going to be one of those series where I read incredibly slowly, and it might take me like a good another year or two to even finish it. So I don't know if more is being added to some of these worlds or series. I don't know if this is where it stops. I hope this is the correct list because when I looked up the series, I saw the House Witch series and then it just kept going. And I was like, okay, I have more than I thought. So hopefully that was a correct listing of this series. I mean, I don't mind either way because, as I mentioned, I really love this series. Oh, this is my junk journal, which I'm not showing right now. I really enjoyed this series. And I enjoyed it so much because I believe I read the second book, I feel like August to November 2025, I feel like. Because I know I read book two pretty soon after book one. And I really love this series and I want to continue it. And I feel like a testament to that is I remember exactly what happens. Well, maybe not exactly like page for page, but I remember exactly what happens in book one. And I remember everything that happened in book two. And because I feel like the series is just so ingrained in my brain that I know I can go a little bit longer with not picking up the third book, but I do want to pick it up sooner. I've checked on my Libby and like the libraries that I have, and I just don't see the House Witch 3. I see it on audiobook, I'm pretty sure, but I'm pretty sure the hours to read it was like incredibly high number and I don't gravitate towards audiobooks. I get distracted like way too easily. So I don't know if I will wait to see if they do get the House Witch 3 or I might just have to end up buying it, which I don't mind. I just wanted to wait a little bit longer on getting on buying all three books. So I guess we'll see. I do still want to continue it. It's just really funny that it's one of the longest book series that I've had, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to read it. So yeah, the House Witch series is cozy, it's fun, and I am really excited to eventually get to the third book. Now, when it comes to the series that I started kind of by mistake, the first one that I have is Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding. So I read this book a couple months ago, I think. Oh, I believe I actually read this in February because I read this after Sky Daddy. I loved the movie and I didn't know it was a book, so I decided to read it. And it was very different. Well, it was pretty different from the movie. Or I guess maybe I should say the movie was fairly different from the book, namely between the drama that goes on between her parents and her mom's affair and like the results of that affair. And then I feel like, what was his name? Daniel Cleaver? Yes. Daniel Cleaver, he was like a loser, to be honest. He was like such a loser in here. I feel like in the movie, Hugh Grant, I'm pretty sure Hugh Grant, he does a pretty good job of making Daniel Cleaver look like this incredibly suave and charming, like intellectual man. But in the book, he just sounds like a complete loser. Like if Bridget was my friend and she was having all of these things happen with Daniel, I feel like I would have to have like a serious sit down with her and be like, look, he's ugly. He is not at all charming. He's not nice. He's like boring and he's a loser. All he wants to do is like stay home and watch like cricket or whatever that sport is. It was a whole thing. So yes, I started Bridget Jones's Diary, and I honestly don't know how many books are in the series. I do have the second book, which is The Edge of Reason. And I know in the movie there's a third movie like about the baby, and I feel like they made a fourth one. And I didn't see it, but from what I gathered from the trailer, it seems like, oh, what was his name too? I can't believe I forgot. It's like one of my favorite movies. Mark Darcy. It just came to me. It seems like in the fourth movie, Mark Darcy like passed away. And I don't know if it's like her being a widow and just trying to like come to terms with his death or something. I don't know. And I don't know if there's that many books. I don't know if there's four or three or just the two. So I guess I'll figure that out because I don't know when I want to read The Edge of Reason. I just know that I definitely do want to read it because, again, the movie is one of my favorites and I love it. So, of course, I am going to continue the book series. The next book that I have is called Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist by Allie K. Mulford and Kate L. Morrison. So, I actually have to be really careful with this book because I mentioned it in one video. I'm pretty sure I just can't remember. The edges are kind of coming off. You can see like right there. And when I turn a few of the pages, I can see the binding. So I think I'm just gonna like just grab it like that. So I started this series and I thought it was so cute. Even though there's like a mystery surrounding the death of one of the characters in here, I found this book to be like really, really cozy and comforting. So it's set in a town where like vampires and werewolves, witches, and things like that are real. And there's like, I think, two humans in this world. And it's this character right here, along with their sister who runs a cafe. So I think there's three books in this series. It's following, well, this book follows Jordan and Harlow. This one is Jordan, this one is Harlow, and I believe in book number 2 it follows Jordan's best friend, I believe. And then in book number 3, it follows Harlow's sister. When I was reading this, I just got like Salem vibes, Halloween Town vibes. So that's something that I really enjoyed about this book. And overall, the romance was just so cute. Something that I've been really enjoying recently is like grief. And what I loved about this book is we are seeing how you can grieve the loss of someone that you love and you sort of learn how to move on and build new relationships. And that is something Jordan here goes through because the ghost here is the ex girlfriend of Jordan. And what I really loved is seeing Jordan just grapple with the general process of grieving somebody, but also knowing that they got murdered. So she goes on to figure out who did it and why. And we also see her open herself up to love again and just building these new relationships. So it had a lot going on. It wasn't just like a cute cozy story set in like a Halloween-ish place with a cafe. It also had a lot of depth to it, and that is what I really loved about this series. I don't know when I want to get to the next two books. I feel like that's just going to be something that I figure out later. If I really want to like stick to the theme and be on the nose, maybe I'll read the next two in October. I'll see. But even though I don't know when I'll get to the next two books in this series, I do still really want to continue it. The next book series that I started and I definitely want to continue is also on the shelf, Purgatory Funeral Cakes by Sun Ho. So I don't remember what the second book is called. I just know that when I logged this onto my Goodreads, I saw that it was a series, and I'm pretty sure I saw a second book to this. So I'll have to double check that because I don't know if maybe I was mistaken or something. So I ended up looking up the book and I was right. There is a volume 2, and it does say that I don't know if it's already released, but it says June 2026. So I am going to have to now look into adding that second book to my bookshelves. So I talked at length about this one, so I won't say too much other than I cried. I loved the grief that was portrayed in here, and I loved the mourning and helping, if not someone who is family, someone who really cared about someone, just helping them grieve and mourn and just letting them open up to their feelings about the person who died. So I am definitely going to be getting volume 2 of Purgatory Funeral Cakes. So the second to last book series that I am in progress of, I am actually not sure if it is a series or not because I've looked at a few things and it always says like in progress or something. And I don't follow the authors on Instagram or anything, so I don't know if they've posted any information regarding the sequel to this book. So I don't know if I'm wrong, if I'm just misinterpreting something, or a third thing that I don't know. But the second to last book that I started and might be continuing, if it is a series, is The Dead Take the A Train by Richard Kadri and Cassandra Kaw. So this was such an interesting book to read. There was a lot of like dark entities in this book, and it was like pretty gory. It wasn't like extreme gory for me. I feel like this was a good like beginner gory. I would feel like this could be a little bit too much for a beginner, maybe. I don't know. I feel like this was like the perfect amount of gory, and I thought the story was just really cool. And I liked the different like POVs that were going on with like this entity that was wanting to take over the world. I can't describe it. Honestly, sometimes there were like sentences or paragraphs or descriptions I had to reread a couple of times because I feel like in the first round of reading, I wouldn't understand it. But then when I would read it a second time, I would get it. So there's just a lot going on to this book. It was gory in like a cool way. I really loved one character in here. I'm pretty sure he was like an assistant or something to Julie. And basically, he like died when they were fighting off like this entity, but she was able to bring him back to life. And then I think they were drunk. She was telling him what happened in that fight, and he was like laughing it up. He found it so funny. And then the next morning, he was gone. And he left her a note saying, like, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna go work at my dad's like car shop. So bye, good luck. I thought that was really funny. But yeah, I don't know if this is gonna be a sequel. It just says, well, everything I look at, it says it's in the works. I just don't know if there's like a date to that. And again, I don't follow the authors on Instagram. Maybe I'll take a peek because I keep like coming back to this being like, is it a series? Is it not a series? Is there going to be a second book or not? I read this with a couple of online friends and I we haven't gotten to talking about it quite yet, but this was a book that I ended up starting, finding out that it's a series, and I added that to my book series progress. So the very last book series that I am currently in progress in, and it would be really funny if this isn't actually the last book and there's like a lot of other books I had missed. But for for right now, the very last book that I am currently in progress in is called Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. I really loved this story. The main character, her name is Lark and his name is Callum. Lark was like a super extrovert for me. I felt like she was a little bit too much. But then when I started reading more and learning more about her backstory, I kind of realized that maybe she was compensating a little bit. So this is also another story about finding love after loss. So that's something that I really enjoyed. And I know my friend, I can't remember if she read this book or book number two, which is called Heartstrings, but I know she read one of those books and she messaged me saying that she thinks I would really enjoy it. And I did. She was right. And I'm really excited because I originally thought that there were only two books in this series, but it turns out there's three. So in this first book, it's obviously Lark and Callum. In book number two, I am pretty sure it focuses on the romantic relationship between Lark's cousin and I think a mutual friend of of Callum, or a mutual friend of Lark, or possibly a, I don't know. I know the man in the second book, he knows them somehow. So that's another continuation of the story. And then in book number three, it follows sort of like a coworker slash acquaintance slash someone who was maybe a previous love interest of Callum. She is the next like main character in book three, and it looks like we're going to be focusing on her romantic relationship with someone. I don't know who it is in the third book, but I remember who each book is focusing on. So just because of that, I definitely will be continuing the series because I love how connected everything is. And I'm just remembering that word I was thinking of for pumpkin spice and poltergeist is interconnected. So that's an interconnected world. I really enjoyed Morbidly Yours, and I think I'm going to love the interconnected books with Morbidly Yours. I think I'll try and get to it this year. I feel like for some reason Heartstrings is like another fall book that I should read. I don't know. I just keep getting fall in like the vibes from these stories, and it's probably not fall at all. But the point is, I really loved and enjoyed Morbidly Yours, and it is definitely a series that I am going to continue. I've talked about all of the books that I have completed. I've talked about all of the books that I am currently in progress in. There is a third section of the book series that I am not going to continue, and it's only the one. I only have one book series I'm not going to continue, and that is Merciless by Danielle Vega. I read the first book in January 2025. I believe it was actually the very first book that I read in 2025. That is just not a series I am going to continue. I did want to because I thought the first book was really fun. It was like Mean Girls but with demons. But I so much time has gone by. I actually don't even have the book. I donated it some time ago and I don't remember when. I did plan to read the series, but when I was looking at that book and that book series and all of the other book series that I was in the middle of that I wanted to start. And I just feel like it just kept getting bumped down on my list of like what book series I want to continue. That eventually I was like, you know what? I don't think I'll be getting to this anytime soon. If I want to, I know I can definitely get it from Libby, but when I think of book series, that's not a book that I think about picking up. So, Merciless by Danielle Vega, I just won't be continuing. It was a fun book. I loved talking about it with my book friends because I read it with my book friends, the same ones that I read The Dead Take the A Train with. But again, I just feel like I had other book series that I honestly wanted to get to first before I got to that one, and then eventually that one just kind of just fell off. That is a pretty long list of every single book series that I have finished, completed, whatnot. I have so many books to get through, and it's just the beginning, and it's only the midpoint of 2026. And I have a feeling, a very strong feeling, that a lot of these book series are going to roll over into 2027. That is all that I had for today. I am incredibly hot and sweaty, and I feel like I am beginning to become more delirious. I feel like I was kind of just rambling when I was talking about Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks. So I am going to end it here. I would love to know what series you're currently in the middle of, what new series you want to start, what book series you're just not going to continue anymore. I want to know it all. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope that I see you next time.